She hasn't seen him in a lifetime. She hasn't dreamed of him at nighttime lately. But when she wakes up in the...
Okay, good. Welcome back, everyone. We are season 6 here at If It Be Your World podcast, coming to you from a beautiful sunny fall day in Quebec, Canada. And I'm just reaching to our neighbors across Ontario border. I have a Marc Morrissette from Octoberman, who just put out an absolutely stunning record called Shoots. Just dropped not that long ago, so it's still hot off the press. You can go and get yourself a copy, which I recommend. Going to the Bandcamp is there as well. And I'm hauling Marc in today to talk about kind of his musical journey, but also we're going to pay a close attention to this great record that he created. I just want to know all the little details, little nitpicky details about how it came to be. So Marc, thanks so much for taking some time out of your day and joining me here to talk about your music.
Well, thanks so much for having me, Chris. It's really nice to meet you.
Yeah, it's been a real pleasure. So Marc, let's dive back in time a little bit. I'd love to know, like, how all this started for you. Now, I know it's hard to pin it to like, okay, this happened and then it all happened. But were there some moments that you can recall when you were, growing up, teenage years, going up into your 20s, where some experiences or chance encounters kind of started to make this idea of being in music a reality?
For sure. Yeah. Maybe I'll just go back to the teen years since you referenced that. I have an older brother, 3 years older. Okay. And that's a huge sort of secret weapon for people that nerd out on music, just having access to whatever they're listening to at a later stage in teenhood. And so he got me, and he's a real music lover and a musician as well. So he got me into like pretty early, like into, Bob Dylan, Neil Young, Velvet Underground. And then I sort of found my own way to a lot of stuff like Sebado and Dinosaur Jr. Later built Spill, and Pavement was always big. So I sort of ended up marrying both of those worlds when I finally bought my own guitar at 17 and started basically learning how to play a lot of the songs that I was listening to. And that was a good start for me. I never actually took formal lessons. I just played with friends and learned a lot of other people's songs. And I was always sort of writing and drawing, and I was always creative before having access to an instrument. And even like I had keyboards and stuff, and I would sort of mess around with those. So it really it was this sort of gravitational pull. And then in terms of the moment when I started sort of playing out, is I was going to university in Waterloo, Ontario, and I started playing locally there. There were some local compilations. Everyone would submit a song. I started doing that. And Waterloo is about an hour from Toronto. And so I started playing there as well regularly. And then life sort of brought me out to the West Coast in Vancouver. And I met some musician friends there pretty quickly. Some of them I had met earlier in my Ontario days that ended up relocating as well. But I already had a project called Kids These Days that I was more of a bedroom recording project. And I was sort of playing under that name in Toronto and Waterloo, as I mentioned. But in Vancouver, I started a band called Kids These Days, and we had a lot of momentum, especially when I look back on it. We had no idea what we were doing, but we toured a ton. Like we had a lot of energy. We were young, early 20s. We toured up and down the West Coast, all over Canada, New York City, played a bunch of shows there. And I think because we were so just playing a lot and meeting people and just constantly inspired, just good things started to happen. We ended up on, Much Music and CBC and had song placements and, American TV shows, Canadian TV shows, and, featured in the weeklies and all of that, and Exclaim. So it was just like this natural snowball effect. And the thing about that band is there was 4 singer-songwriters. And so I had some really mellow stuff that wasn't appropriate for Kids These Days. So I just started recording that on a 4-track with my friend James. And then Kids These Days, one of the members left for school, or he was moving into his master's and just couldn't tour anymore. So that immediately came to a crashing halt. And I'd already recorded this side project and I didn't know what to call it. And the first Kids These Days CD that I recorded early on was called Octoberman. And so I just looked at that. I'm like, okay, I'll just call this Octoberman. And then I think I took all that momentum from that band and I just put it into like, a quote unquote solo project that I made a conscious decision that the membership would be fluid. Sometimes it would even just be touring solo just for, logistics and economic reasons. But sometimes, local shows, would be like 8 or 9 of us. So it was really all over the place. And I'd say that was the sort of synopsis of the launching of the project itself.
Amazing. And Octoberman's first release that's on Bandcamp anyway, These Trails Are Old and New. You said that there's always a varying cast of characters. Were some of those members that came in with this first early recording, did they maintain throughout? Did they appear in shoots? Like, did that continue on that lineage?
Well, so that's a good question. So interestingly, some of the Kids These Days, actually almost all the Kids These Days members are on the first couple of Octoberman records or albums. But what happened is in 2008, I moved to Toronto. And so that sort of necessitated a lineup change. And so I'd already met Marshall Bureau, who he was playing in another band that I was touring with in Europe. And we vibed as friends. And so he started drumming with us. And then Tabo Diaz de Bonilla, who he filled in on bass when we were touring with a band called the Fembots, a great band called the Fembots. So yeah, oh yeah, they're so good. They're such good guys and such a great, creative, inspiring, interesting band. So anyways, I sort of had the rhythm section, and then my friend CL, who was playing with me in Vancouver, he moved to Toronto at the same time. So that's where that sort of continued with a different rhythm section. And then I'd say the band, we started playing with JJ Ibsen in 2011, 2012. And so JJ, Tabo, and Marshall have been, for the last 13 years or so. And then my friend Annalise, who has done some recording with us since like around 2014, she's now playing as well and playing shows with us and recording with us. So it's been pretty, when you look at 20 years, it's not the same folks. As I said, it was sort of meant to be membership flexible. But yeah, it's been pretty steady when you think of the history of most bands, I guess.
Absolutely. And how did you kind of break off from the Kids These Days in the sense of, you said you had these slower kind of more, indie folky songs that were coming out of you. Was it pretty obvious right from as you were penning those songs that this was going to be something that would be not a part of the band that you were in at the time? Like, you had this vision of, okay, I think I need to branch off and put my own songs forward.
Yeah, it was more that I just had the songs and they were, I guess I'm a little bit, I wouldn't say hyper, but I just, for some reason, when I get a batch of songs, I kind of want to record them and release them just to get them behind me. And so Kids These Days was more, I'd say more indie rock, for lack of a better word, than these songs. These songs were more folky. And so I didn't even want to like pitch them and try to like add a dimension to Kids These Days. I just was like, okay, I'll do these over here. And then I'll bring songs with a bit more, I guess, either a faster tempo or like a bit less folky to that project. But then that project ended. And so then my second Octoberman album, Run From Safety, there's some Kids These Days songs that just, we didn't have a chance to record them that ended up on that album. And that's sort of like closer to what Kids These Days sounded like. And I guess I was part of Kids These Days. So it wasn't a crazy departure.
No, really interesting. And Marc, what's your process? Like, how does a song come to you? And I'll add on to that. When a song comes to you, when do you know I want to keep pursuing this, or, and I'll put it with the batch of songs that I want to record versus I'm going to shelve this one because just not there yet with it. Like, how do you approach your songwriting, and can it be that black and white when you know you're onto something versus when you're not?
I find this to be a super interesting question. And a lot of my songwriter friends will ask that to each other because it's a fascinating how everyone works. I don't really have a set process. And in fact, I've tried every way of writing a song. I don't think there's been a way that's been, better or worse. It just happens to be how it unfolds. But I'm always writing.
Right.
But I really like to work, as I sort of mentioned, like I want to finish a project. So if I have like too many songs accumulating, I want to like pick the best. What I do is my process is I'm writing all the time. I collect them, but then when I'm ready to work on a record, I demo all of them, and that's where I'm finalizing arrangements and keys and lyrics. And so once they're all demoed, I usually have a sense of which ones I think are the strongest, and I'll send those to my bandmates, and then we'll just rehearse a few times to get the rhythm and the tempos finalized, and then just book studio time and play as a band as much as possible. And then there's room to add stuff afterwards to sort of color it, add some textures, and finalize it from there.
So you're not bringing it to bandmates like, here it is. There's influences and their personalities seep into it as well. But I mean, those personalities just because you guys have been playing together for so long. So you must already kind of know, all right, he's going to add this to it. Or he's going to is it work in that way a little bit?
Yeah, no, for sure. I basically wholeheartedly trust and know them, as you mentioned. And I don't like to dictate what their parts sound like. So everyone writes their own parts. And I will have ideas for instrumentation. Like there were some songs in the Shoots demos where I sent them to the bandmates. I said, Annalise, I'd love for you to play banjo on this one and accordion on this one. And I already know she plays those instruments really well. And she's also a producer. And so she would know where to fit them in and what would work with the song. So I was never concerned about that. But there was ideas I had for guitar lines, lead guitar lines that I just demoed myself. So then when the rest of the members heard the song, they're like, okay, well, Marc's already got an idea there. And then so I won't bother writing a line for that song. I'll add one over here. I'll add a part over here. So there's a little bit of both happening, but I would never tell someone how to play their own instrument or their own.
But if you had a line that was integral to the overarching song, I was talking to somebody the other day and he's like, yeah, like, the Guns N' Roses song, Sweet Child of Mine, like you're not going to go and change that line, the guitar line, because it's like, that's the song,
It really is the song, yeah.
He saw it in that way as well, where certain, almost like the instruments where it was another voice or another, integral part of the song that you just wouldn't, no, you can't change that. This is, it has to be like this, like.
Exactly. Sometimes the line is just there, and yeah, you're right. It's hard to. I wish I wrote a guitar line as good as that one in Child of Mine, but such is life.
The first song off of Shoots is pretty darn close. I mean, it's such a great song, Harry Nilsson, the song that is the opening. I mean, it's got a great line on it. It's very subtle though, but it's there and it's just throughout, and it's like the foundation I find of that song. The guitar line, which is just. So I want to talk about this, but before we jump into that, you're a prolific songwriter. Like your catalog is massive. You've written and recorded, hundreds of songs. And you were chugging along, and then 2024 hits, right? You put out the record. Let me just get it right because I want to make sure. What happened? What more, right? 2024.
2014. Yeah. Yeah.
And then things kind of got quiet for you. And then stuff only came out a little bit, multiple years later. Do you mind if I ask, like, what was that, what happened with the musical journey at that time where it had to be kind of halted a little bit or reduced in a way?
Yeah, no, it's an obvious question, and I totally appreciate it. So basically, the easiest way to answer is life happened. I mentioned when we were sort of bantering earlier, I've got two kids. So I'd say they were a big part of it. And just having to pay a mortgage and, new responsibilities. I just, and also just energy and momentum. Like I'm big on momentum, and I just had none of it. And also when I put out What More, and even, the last song's What More Do You Want? I honestly thought that might be the last Octoberman album, and I was totally fine with that. And And touring
set, Mark? Like, was that
a little bit.
Okay, this is the project. It had its legs. We had some fun.
It felt like it. And honestly, I had zero interest in touring anymore at that point, especially, also when you're about to start a family. And for me, it's like, why put something out if you can't really promote it or do anything to actually finish the cycle? But what happened was I kept writing. I kept, I would jam sometimes with my bandmates. I played the odd, I think I only played one show, so not the odd show. Somebody asked me to open up for them. And then what happened was in January 31st, 2022, my mom suddenly passed away. And it sort of flipped my life upside down. And it was interesting. So I was going through her car and, you do all the stuff to as an estate obligations. And it blew my mind. Like, she had all my Octoberman CDs in her car, including one in the player. And then I was going through her stuff and collecting it, and she had a scrapbook of every little piece of press we'd ever gotten and every show poster I'd ever, I lived in Vancouver for a while, so I would just give her stuff or send her stuff. And, it was a way to, show her what I'd been up to. And so she was a fan and a supporter. And then I was talking to my brother, and he said, she told him once, I forget how this came up, but she told him, "Oh, Marc will always make music." And in my mind, I'm kind of like, well, it felt like a way to kind of work through the grief was to I just decided then there, I'm like, I'm going to write and record an album. And it happened really quickly. As I mentioned, he died at the end of January. We'd finished writing and recording it by the end of May. There was some stuff added later. It was really a whirlwind. And I kind of wanted to just get it done. And then after that, it felt so good to be making music again and hanging out with my friends in that capacity and playing the odd show. And also the other reality, my kids have grown up a bit. So, I can actually pull it off. The diapers are gone. Exactly. Exactly. I always laughed when I saw that Chad Mangalen album cover. It's called Diaper Island. So I was on Diaper Island for a bit. And so finally I was no longer marooned. And so, yeah, again, that momentum where I had so many songs over that 9 period where I didn't put anything out. So I had this sort of gift of, at least 2 albums worth. And then now I've got another couple albums worth as well. So yeah. And for having the songs, I'm not too precious about stylistically or what works together. It's just where I'm at in that moment. What's the batch and what are the strongest 10 or 12.
I like your, go get it mentality. It's like, it's here, it's happening. I'm not stopping. The gas is going. Let's go. I love it.
It's the only way, really.
It's done, right? Or it's always
exactly.
Okay, well, next week or we'll see. Or no, it's doing. We're going.
It's true. Sorry, this might be too much information, but I had this other, scary thought. When someone close to you dies unexpectedly, you're like, life is short.
Yeah.
And I was just like, okay, I want to do this now while I can. And so there was definitely all of that swirling around. So.
Totally. So then come Shoots. I mean, I want to drill down on this a little bit because it's such a great record. And I've read that the recording method that you use, it was live, click tracks, analog. It sounded like you wanted it to feel like a live performance in a way. And you wanted all those kind of subtle hisses and pops and things when you're recording live and on analog. Mm-hmm. What was your mindset in approaching this record that way?
Yeah, that's another great question. So we had recorded all analog and almost all live for an album called Fortresses that came out in 2009. Mm-hmm. And I've recorded every different way. And for There You Were that came out in 2023, it was everything to a click track. It was, we recorded in a studio and then home studio a bit afterwards, but it was very digital and lots of, plugins and all that stuff. And it sounds great. I really like how it turned out. The fellow that helped us out, produced it, his name, Chris Stringer, very talented, awesome guy. So I loved how that turned out, but I couldn't help but want to do the opposite on the next record. So no metronomes, no click track. We recorded literally the 2-inch tape, and it was we're in the room staring at each other playing the way we would if we were either playing on a stage or in a rehearsal space. And I just, there's something about that is a bit intangible, but I like the sound of, analog live recordings. I listen to a lot of old music, and that was just the only way they could do it back in the day. So yeah, that was the mindset going in, obviously. And then you take advantage of the tools. A couple of the members didn't even set foot in the studio, and they just sent their parts in via home studio and internet. And that was largely geographic limitations. We're scattered all over Ontario. So it's just like, you do what you got to do.
Yeah.
And everyone's busy.
We are lucky too to have that capacity nowadays, which we didn't have when, say, your first record came out,
Exactly.
it just weren't available. So it has made making music in that collaborative process much easier on artists.
Exactly. I'm not against that at all, because it's a fantastic
totally
tool and opportunity. And so, yeah, I loved taking advantage of both on this record.
Right.
Yeah.
And Marc, these are like half songs that you had kind of on that bookshelf or in your catalog that you hadn't touched yet. And then others were new songs that were penned for this record in particular?
That's exactly right. Yeah. So half of them were songs I wrote after There You Were had been finished. Mm-hmm. And then the other half were me going through, I found a bunch of old hard drives, and just out of fun, I just listened back to all the, there's folders just called demos and like all different years.
Wow.
And I was just curious what the heck I was up to back then. And I found some songs that I don't remember writing. I don't remember recording the demo. And they kind of stick out, like they're different stylistically than a lot of my songs, and especially compared to the newer stuff. So yeah. I took advantage of that, and I might have changed some of the structure or the lyrics or the arrangements, but the other half were those. And interestingly, a lot of them were storytelling songs about characters, conversations.
Yeah.
And again, those are the songs I don't remember writing. So I don't remember what inspired them. Was I watching some weird movie, or I have no idea. But that was a fun aspect as well for me to combine both, and it gave a bit more variety to the record itself, because it's like, okay, it's not just a narrator kind of waxing on about what's going on in 2020s. It's just like a little bit of vignettes, so to speak.
I like the songs that have characters in them, like Roger and Austin, and the first track, Harry Nilsson. I mean, they are so authentic, and it's fun to kind of listen along to the story that you're telling us, rather than, it's kind of like sitting around and telling stories around the campfire using the guitar and stuff. And I find that authenticity too, and it reminded me when I saw you on AG, just doing your acoustic songs, you'd put out a few the last month ago, leading up to the release. And those songs that you just singing there have that same essence that the record has. And I just find that amazing. And I don't know how you did it, but the personality and the heart of the songs just carry through whenever you sing them, because
cool. Well,
you are who you are. But I've really, really enjoyed revisiting those songs and kind of listening to the stories and the storytelling as it goes through. And my next question is, did you have the library songs the songs from the past that you have on this record now, and those informed you as to what songs you wanted to write? Or were you doing it kind of, you had those and then they didn't really influence the songs, but then they just kind of fit? How did it happen? Accidentally that the song?
It was totally accidentally. Yeah. I always just have a batch, and they happen to be in the same batch. And then I'd already written the new songs when I found those demos, and I decided to pad the options with those as well. But it is funny, like I played the album for my kids, and when there's people's names, they don't really fully understand the concept of, like, you make up a story. So there's one song, and I'm pretending that my wife just left me for a guy named Roger, and I'm like kind of like feeling sorry for myself. And they thought it was hilarious. And they're just like, who's Roger? I'm like, there is no Roger. And I hope there isn't a Roger that emerges in my real life. And if I meet a guy named Roger, I should maybe look at him a little suspiciously. But so yeah. And then there's one about this woman named Marla, and I thought that was hilarious too. So it does change the way someone listens to a song, and I appreciate that. And I listen to a lot of old country songs, and there's a lot of that, right? It's people's names, and it just draws you in a different way, I think.
Yeah. So what is coming down the pipe over the next year or so, Marc? Apropos to Octoberman, are you going to do some touring, or are you going to bring back into the record thing?
So we're just there's only 2 shows on the books right now. We're playing Toronto and Ottawa, and then hoping to add more. And again, it comes down to logistics. Montreal would be great, yeah. It's not far, and yeah, we always love playing there. It's been a while too. Oddly, a lot of my friends from Montreal have moved to Ottawa and Toronto, but I still have some friends there, so it would be fun to make the trip. And then I'm going to start on the next record. I'm going to go into that demoing stage. I've already got the batch written, and so I'm going to start demoing, and no deadlines or anything, but that'll be fun just to kind of start something new from there. And there was one other thing. My friend Ryder told me he thinks I should record a covers album, and my response was like, well, I already have my own songs written, so why would I spend time recording someone else's? But then I was like, okay, why is it either or? Why can't I just do both? So I might, and I've always recorded the odd cover and just put them out as singles, but I thought it might be a nice challenge to have that idea as a side burner, just because I do enjoy, that aspect. And his example was Willie Nelson's Stardust, where I think that was Willie Nelson's breakthrough to a certain degree. And just how people don't do that as much anymore, but it is kind of a cool new way to think of recording an album. It doesn't have to always be your own.
I like that. I think you do great. I call your music Canadiana, not Americana, Canadiana, because
I like that.
It definitely has that Canadian essence to it as well. And talking with you, I mean, we're comrades from the same country, which is always a treat to have, Marc. So I want to thank you first off. Just thanks for taking some time. I know it's a busy time and kids, family, music. So I really appreciate this little carve out that you've given me and given the listeners to hear about your music, how it evolved and where it's going. I'm excited for you. I really love this record. It's one of my no skip records. The Pitchfork do the no skip. Yeah. This is one of them. I just listened to it over and over again. I also had to stop it. I didn't want to wear it out. So I'm like, okay, you're not going to listen to it for a couple of days. I listen to it over and over again. So I appreciate that you put that out there for us. And I wish you all the best. I would love to continue this conversation too, because it's been really, really fun to hear about these stories. And I identify with a lot of what you're saying, being a family man and dealing with music and family is not always easy. So I appreciate you taking some time.
Well, I'm truly honored, and thank you so much, Chris, for nice things and just for wanting to talk to me today. It's been super fun. Very nice to meet you. And I've been listening to the podcast, and I enjoy all your, and it gets into what I find super interesting about people's process, and I find that interesting. Thanks for including me and not in person, but virtually.
Yeah, I mean, this is the next best thing, I guess. So I'll take it. Thanks so much, Marc. All the best.
Gracefully in the proper place to be. Mirrors show the lines of time, like highways leaving us behind. Shock secrets of the open sea stay under. They bury us and carry us beyond here, to further up beyond the skies we wander. How not to fall down, how not to fall down, how not to fall down.